Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer. The name itself sends chills down the spines of those familiar with his horrific crimes. His actions were so heinous that they left an indelible mark on the collective consciousness. Known as the Milwaukee Cannibal, Dahmer terrorized Wisconsin between 1978 and 1991. His reign of terror spanned over a decade, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. He preyed on young men and boys, luring them to his apartment with promises of companionship. These unsuspecting victims were often seeking friendship or a place to belong. Instead, he subjected them to unimaginable horrors. The terror they faced behind those closed doors is beyond comprehension. Dahmer's case remains one of the most disturbing examples of depravity in criminal history. The sheer brutality of his actions continues to haunt those who study his case. Dahmer's crimes went far beyond murder. His actions were a grotesque blend of violence and perversion. He engaged in necrophilia, dismemberment, and cannibalism. These acts of extreme depravity shocked even the most seasoned investigators. The details of his crimes revealed during his trial shocked the nation and the world. The public was left grappling with the horror of his actions. How could someone commit such atrocities? What kind of mind could conceive and carry out such acts? What drove Dahmer to such unspeakable acts? The psychological underpinnings of his behavior remain a subject of intense study and debate. The answers, like the crimes themselves, are complex and deeply disturbing. They reveal a mind twisted by dark fantasies and uncontrollable urges. His victims, mostly young men on the fringes of society, became objects in Dahmer's twisted fantasies. They were chosen for their vulnerability and isolation. He sought to exert ultimate control over them, even in death. His need for dominance knew no bounds. Dahmer's case is a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. It serves as a stark warning of the potential for evil within the human soul. Jeffrey Dahmer's path to becoming a monster wasn't a sudden eruption of evil. Instead, it was a gradual descent marked by disturbing behaviors in his youth. Born in Milwaukee in 1960, Dahmer had a seemingly unremarkable early childhood. However, as he grew older, unsettling signs began to emerge. Dahmer developed a fascination with dead animals. He collected roadkill, dissecting and dismembering the carcasses. This macabre interest went beyond typical childhood curiosity. It hinted at a deeper disturbance, a morbid fascination with death and decay. As a teenager, Dahmer became increasingly withdrawn and isolated. His parents' divorce further fueled his emotional turmoil. He grappled with his sexuality, harboring feelings of confusion and shame. These simmering psychological issues, coupled with his morbid fixations, created a dangerous cocktail. It set the stage for his horrific crimes to come. In 1978, at the age of 18, Jeffrey Dahmer committed his first murder. His victim was Stephen Hicks, a hitchhiker Dahmer lured to his home. Dahmer bludgeoned Hicks to death after a sexual encounter. This act of violence marked a terrifying turning point in Dahmer's life. It was the beginning of a gruesome killing spree that would span over a decade. After his first murder, Dahmer honed his methods, developing a chilling modus operandi. He targeted young men, often from marginalized communities, whom he found at gay bars, bus stops, or malls. Dahmer would lure them back to his apartment with promises of money or sex. Once inside, he would drug their drinks, rendering them helpless. Dahmer's crimes escalated in their brutality. He experimented with different methods of killing, including strangulation and stabbing. He would often dismember his victims' bodies in his apartment, driven by a perverse desire to keep souvenirs of his crimes. The apartment became a gruesome tableau of his dark fantasies, reeking of death and decay. Over the years, Dahmer's actions grew increasingly bold and reckless, as he sought to fulfill his dark desires. His heinous acts left a trail of shattered lives and unanswered questions, forever haunting the communities he preyed upon. The full extent of Jeffrey Dahmer's depravity was revealed during his trial. The details of his crimes shocked even seasoned investigators. Dahmer's modus operandi went beyond simply taking lives. It was about exerting ultimate control over his victims, even in death. Necrophilia played a significant role in Dahmer's crimes. He would engage in sexual acts with the bodies of his victims, driven by a twisted desire for domination and possession. Cannibalism was another horrifying aspect of Dahmer's pathology. He admitted to consuming the flesh of some of his victims, claiming a desire to make them a permanent part of him. Dahmer's apartment became a macabre workshop of death. He would dismember bodies in his bathtub, using acid to dissolve flesh and bones. He kept skulls and other body parts as trophies, storing them in his refrigerator or preserving them in formaldehyde. Photos found in Dahmer's apartment provided chilling evidence of his crimes, documenting his descent into madness. Despite the gruesome nature of his crimes, Jeffrey Dahmer managed to evade capture for over a decade. His ability to blend in, coupled with a series of missed opportunities by law enforcement, allowed him to continue his killing spree. Dahmer often targeted victims from marginalized communities. Their disappearances were less likely to be noticed or thoroughly investigated. He was also a master manipulator, able to convince others he was harmless and charming. His quiet demeanor and unassuming appearance disarmed potential victims and at times even law enforcement. There were several instances where Dahmer came close to being caught. In 1988, a 14-year-old boy escaped from Dahmer's apartment and alerted authorities. However, Dahmer was able to convince police that the boy was his consenting adult lover, and he was released. This incident, along with others, highlighted systemic failures in the investigation of missing persons cases, particularly those involving marginalized communities. Jeffrey Dahmer's reign of terror finally came to an end on July 22, 1991. Tracy Edwards, a 32-year-old man, managed to escape from Dahmer's apartment after being drugged and held captive. Edwards flagged down police, leading them back to the apartment. What they discovered inside was a scene of unimaginable horror. Body parts were scattered throughout the apartment. Photographs of dismembered victims and jars containing preserved organs painted a chilling picture of Dahmer's crimes. Dahmer was immediately arrested. He confessed to the murders of 17 young men and boys, shocking the nation with the depravity of his crimes. "It's just a nightmare," Dahmer later said during a televised interview. "I never wanted any of this to happen, but obviously, it did." His words rang hollow to the families of his victims, who were left grappling with the unimaginable loss and the horrifying details of their loved ones' final moments. The impact of Jeffrey Dahmer's crimes on the families of his victims was profound and devastating. The sheer brutality and senselessness of his actions left a permanent scar on their hearts and minds. Many families struggled to comprehend the horrific circumstances of their loved ones' deaths. The shock and disbelief were overwhelming, as they tried to piece together how such a tragedy could have occurred. The gruesome details revealed during Dahmer's trial only compounded their pain and anger. Each revelation was like reopening a wound, making it harder for them to find any semblance of peace. "I don't know how he could have done this," said Shirley Hughes, the mother of one of Dahmer's victims, during an interview. Her words echoed the sentiments of many who were grappling with the same questions. "He took my son away from me. He took away everything," she continued, her voice breaking with emotion. The loss was not just of a loved one, but of a future filled with hopes and dreams. Families felt betrayed by a system that failed to protect their loved ones. Their grief was intertwined with a deep sense of injustice and frustration. The fact that Dahmer had been able to evade capture for so long only fueled their outrage and grief. They questioned how such oversight could have happened and demanded answers. The trial and its aftermath shed light on the systemic issues that allowed Dahmer's crimes to continue for so long. It was a stark reminder of the flaws within the justice system. Many families of the victims felt marginalized by the justice system, their voices unheard. They felt as though their pain was being overlooked in the broader narrative. The case sparked a national conversation about police accountability, racial bias in law enforcement, and the need for greater sensitivity in handling missing persons cases. It was a call to action for systemic change and justice for all. After a highly publicized trial, Jeffrey Dahmer was found guilty of 15 counts of murder and sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms in prison. He was spared the death penalty because Wisconsin, the state where his crimes were committed, did not have capital punishment at the time. While incarcerated at Columbia Correctional Institution in Portage, Wisconsin, Dahmer claimed to have found God. He was baptized into the Church of Christ and expressed remorse for his crimes. However, many questioned the sincerity of his supposed conversion. Public outrage over Dahmer's crimes remained palpable. In 1994, Dahmer's life behind bars was cut short when he was beaten to death by a fellow inmate. Christopher Scarver, who was serving a life sentence for murder, attacked Dahmer while the two were on cleaning duty. Scarver later claimed he was motivated by Dahmer's crimes and his perceived lack of remorse. The Jeffrey Dahmer case continues to cast a long shadow over Milwaukee and the nation. It serves as a chilling reminder of the depths of human depravity and the devastating consequences of evil left unchecked. Dahmer's crimes sparked important conversations about homophobia, racial bias in law enforcement, and the need for greater awareness and sensitivity in handling missing persons cases. The case also highlighted the importance of mental health awareness and the need for early intervention when individuals exhibit disturbing behaviors. Despite the passage of time, the families of Dahmer's victims still grapple with the pain and loss inflicted upon them. Their resilience and their fight for justice serve as a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, even in the face of unimaginable tragedy. The case of Jeffrey Dahmer remains a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives and the importance of vigilance in protecting the vulnerable among us.